Hi, Julia. We are absolutely delighted to have you with us today. For the audience, because Leah's done lots of research and I've looked you up too, but for the audience, can you tell us a little bit about your journey to where you are in AI, what led you here, and a little bit about what you do?
Okay, yes, pleasure. Well, first of all, thanks a lot for having me. I will try to keep it brief and spare you, the long story because obviously we could start very early on. So I don't have a tech background, which is something I always like to underline. I am actually a social scientist by training many, many, many years ago, did a PhD in this space, but then thought that the work I was doing wasn't destined to have major impact on the way the world runs. So I then moved more into management, and I've basically spent my entire career at the intersection of research, innovation, technology, entrepreneurship, and was always moving sort of from innovation more into tech, then more into data. And then obviously, once you're in data, AI is not far away. So it's been, looking back, it looks a little like a very, very clear path, which is never the case, right? Because just one thing builds on, obviously, on the other. But I have been working for the European institutions, really trying to help them rethink the way we are funding innovation. I've always come more from the social impact side, and I'm very much concerned about societal implications, right? And how can we make sure that society is on board when we're thinking about technological innovations. I've been working with the G20 for a while, and I've been running my own organization a couple of years ago already. The first one, which was called the Futures Project, which is all about how do we use innovation and tech actually in a way to help us achieve, for instance, the Sustainable Development Goals. This is when I started to work with entrepreneurs. After that, I built a Data for Good organization in Brussels. And then it all culminated a year and a half ago when I suddenly thought I need to do something about women in AI, right? Because AI is here, it's here to stay. But I was very concerned by the fact that we didn't see enough women in the AI conversation. And not only women in general, but really women who are shaping the technology. And that is something that we're wanting to tackle with C-Shapes AI, really spotlighting women who are changing the needle in the space of AI development and application, but really do so with a lot of responsibility and with a focus on addressing real problems.
Thank you so
Wow.
much. Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible what you've done. And as someone from a social sciences background myself, I really do think that AI, it can't be built without that knowledge, without the impact, without the care. AI should be human centered. And I also do really love whenever I hear about a female AI founder, female tech founder. I've never met one that hasn't really brought a lot of their heart into it. You've had such a diverse career, bridging academia, AI, public policy, like it's incredible. Can you walk us through just that, maybe one or two pivotal moments when you realized that AI wasn't just a technical field?
Yeah, I think maybe we can even start a little early because AI at the end of the day is technology, right? And technology is never just technical. Because, first of all, obviously what gets into technology development is already needs to be very diverse, and technology never exists in a vacuum, right? It also doesn't solve problems itself. It always sort of exercises its impacts in a context, which sometimes I think is problematic because sometimes when we're in tech development, we're just thinking about the problem that was identified in a very narrow way. Then we're deploying the technology and think the problem will magically be fixed. It's never working in this way, right? We always have to think about the systems that are surrounding the technology and the deployment. And it's no different for AI. So again, AI doesn't exist in a vacuum. AI is not just about technology. I had a really nice conversation a couple of weeks ago with an AI expert, and we were talking about AI as a human capability challenge, right? It's just not enough to throw a technology out there like AI and then just magically think it's going to work out and solve all our problems. It's also not going to do the contrary. It's also not going to kill all of us. We always have to consider that it's actually something societal that's happening here. So when we started having these AI conversations and we heard all of these promises and AI is going to deliver so many great value for humanity, I was actually really excited. But then I started to look a little deeper and I was like, yes, but right now we're stopping, I think, a little early. We're looking in particular at efficiency, productivity, but we're not really thinking about how we can use AI to help us solve the big problems. And I underline help us solve because again, it's not going to solve problems just on its own.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I think that when the AI boom happened a few years ago, it almost seemed like AI would either be the silver bullet that kills off the human race. That seemed to be a consensus that people were having. It was either going to be the silver bullet or it was going to be this miracle piece of technology. But I feel like we're getting to a point now where it's almost evening out. People
Mm-hmm.
are realizing AI is only as good as what you put into it. So really, we are still the foundation of all of these solutions. And not only that, but it's not everything that it needs to be. We still need to put our thoughts into it, our feelings into it. I was having a conversation with someone last week about AI art, and they were
Mm-hmm.
saying AI is such a drain on the art community, on the creative community. And I said, well, if you look at art, you can immediately tell when it's made by AI.
Mm-hmm.
Immediately tell when it's not real, even with art that's been ripped off from someone else. You can tell nothing is as good as the original. And I think that's kind of the same with technology and things like that. You can tell when something hasn't been made with a human touch, when something hasn't been made with humans in mind, when something's just been made for the sake of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm quite glad that we've got to this point as well, because it feels like uh, and instead of figuring out how to make the AI work, we're figuring out how to make the AI work for us.
For us, yes. And I think that is the crucial, right? That is the crucial differentiation. And it's not about, yeah, exactly AI doing stuff for us, but really thinking about how can it support us. But it's always, starting with the human first. It's always starting and ending with the human first. And I think where can AI come in and maybe and complement and support?
Exactly.
Have to add, I'm not sure what you said that everyone can immediately tell. We actually had in our work recently this week an image that I thought was a stock image that was an AI generated image. And I think that it's getting harder to tell, what is original art, what's an original photo in comparison to an AI generated one. And I think it's going to get harder and harder. So I do hear your point that you can tell, but maybe you also know what to look for. And I'm not sure if everyone can. So I think there is a challenge there for us.
I think this was for you, right?
Do you think, oh well, it's for everyone, for all of us to discuss, but I do think that once you see a pattern, when you're seeing AI art being generated, like the hands are always off a little bit, the face looks a little bit too smooth, there's something a little bit off. I think that's the thing. It looks a little bit uncanny valley a lot of the time. And I think within human evolution, like, we have been trained to see uncanny valley. If you really look at something for enough time, I think that you can tell whether it's AI or not. But I guess the thing is, a lot of people aren't looking at things for a long
Yes. Yes,
time.
exactly. And when we're thinking about videos that are generated by AI, then I think it's getting really complicated. Right? Very real situations. You're putting people into situations that are highly likely or could potentially. And I think there it's getting very difficult to distinguish between what's real and what's fake. And it's also not very easy to detect this. I also think, we have a huge responsibility when it comes to education, right? How can we detect this? But also, what kind of a responsibility do we have as users, when it comes to putting out these things? But also the responsibility of the tech companies to, who provide those tools. But yeah, I see it in art. I would definitely think, and maybe in paintings, etc., etc. I would also say, yes, I can detect it. I think if it's AI, but when we're looking at video generation, right, then I think it can be a very different story.
Definitely. On social media now, though, it can detect whether or not it is AI generated. And if you scroll down to the bottom of a caption, it will tell you
Mhm.
this is AI generated. This has some sort of AI generation in it. It
Mm.
does say that. It has to say that now. Do you see that on X, on Facebook, and also on Instagram? Not on TikTok yet, not that I've noticed.
Mm. Mm.
Um, I think as time goes on, it will have to be, I have a feeling that it'll become a requirement that you'll have to say, "This is AI generated." Just like how in universities now, you have to sign something and say, "This is how much AI I used, and
Mm,
this is how much AI I used." I have a feeling that that will come in the future, but I guess with that comes people finding ways around it.
yes. Yeah. I agree with you. I think it will come and it has to come, but there will also be other evolutions, that take place in parallel.
Exactly. I guess this is where discernment comes in.
Mm.
Responsible use with AI will also come in. I know that in mainland Europe, the Responsible AI Use Act or something came out last year, I think it was, or maybe it was the year before. I still feel like I'm in 2025 brain. So, but that came out, and that has quite a lot in it about what is okay to use AI for, and the irresponsible uses, and like not just scamming, but also using it in work and things like that is
Yeah.
illegal across the EU. So I think that in itself is also really interesting. In the UK, we're maybe a couple of years behind the rest of Europe and the rest of the world as well. But moving on a little bit, I was wondering, when you were building She Shapes AI, you did a lot of work, you do a lot of work amplifying women pioneers who are responsibly using AI. What do you see as the most effective strategies for building different kinds of AI ecosystems? And how do you measure that, how they're working?
Mm. Yeah, first of all, one of the reasons why I started Two Shapes AI in the beginning, the idea was really just to create a platform to spotlight female entrepreneurs in the AI space. Was that I was very frustrated with seeing all the time the same list. These are the 6 top women in AI, right? And it's always the same. They all come from the US. They all work for the big tech companies, not necessarily, but it's always the same 6. And this just can't be, right? The world is much bigger than this, and we need to have many more examples and role models when it comes to AI development. And so this is really what She Shapes AI sets out to do. And so the first thing I would say that we're doing really is to amplify and spotlight, right? So we are spotlighting responsible AI innovation and the women running it, developing it, being in charge of it from around the world, right? Because innovation doesn't only happen in the capitals, it happens everywhere where someone detects a problem and then goes about solving it. So it's really about giving them this platform, because if you don't have the visibility, no one will know what you're doing. And so this is exactly what we're trying to do with our awards that are now actually running for the second time. We'll celebrate our winners for the second round in April this year in London. So stay tuned for this. And for us, it's really about showcasing how you can go about AI development application in a responsible way, right? Coming back to what we just said, in an ethical way, but also with a focus on social impact. And that really is the niche that we're in with She Shapes AI. It's focusing on female leaders and entrepreneurs in responsible AI for social impact. And so the first thing that I would say is really the spotlighting and amplifying. The second really is creating this community feeling through our events. We do have regular events, online events, offline events, bringing people together, not only women, but many, many women, obviously, but also men. And we're very, we really want men to be part of these conversations. And what I hear oftentimes also from men is that they say, we didn't know these stories existed. We didn't know these applications existed. Yes, obviously, because normally no one talks about them. And so we're really trying to foster these conversations and also foster an understanding of what AI looks like when it's done well and what is required, right? And this is really sort of center stage in all our events. And we're also always trying to do events or, this community building in collaboration. Also, I'm a huge believer in collaboration, trying to find like-minded communities, individuals, organizations, and then just try to amplify each other and to bring different communities together so that we're not always all just in our little niche, but we're really trying to create something that is actually more like a movement. So that's the second. And the third, I would say, is what we've started at the end of last year. And this is focusing very much on how to bring female leaders more on board in the AI conversation. So it's something that I hadn't anticipated us doing. I thought education is something that other organizations will be doing, not us. But throughout the year, now we've been running for a year and a half, and we've built some sort of a reputation, right, as a trusted space also for women in AI. So a lot of women in senior positions came to us and said, we really think we need to get a better grasp of what's happening. We really want to be part of conversations in our organizations when it comes to AI deployment, development. When do we want to use it? When maybe not? How can we better support our teams? But we're feeling we're not equipped. We don't know the language. We feel like in our organizations, companies, AI is automatically being associated with the male colleagues because they are male. So, this equals tech expertise. This isn't necessarily true, but this is what we're seeing happening. So we have now developed courses really specifically for female leaders. And this doesn't focus on how to prompt, but it really focuses on giving strategic fluency and confidence. How do I cut through the jargon? How do I understand what's actually happening? How do I contextualize AI, where it comes from, where it's heading? And how can I make this work for me as an individual, in my organization, but also how can I take my teams along? And how can I take on a responsibility or when it comes to deploying AI within the organization and for what purposes? And then always going back to the responsible and the impact angle. So I would say these are the three areas that we're focusing on. Measurement, obviously, we like to see many people show up for our events, but what I love to see is concrete examples of collaborations that come out, when we're putting people in one room or when we're highlighting our winners. Do they get, invitations to podcasts? Do they get more funding at the end of the day? It is, also access to funding. I think that is so crucial, in particular for female founders, not only in the AI space, but also in the AI space. We all know that female founders only get 2% of VC funding. It's not different in the AI space, although everyone seems to be working on AI and in AI innovations, but it's not something that is being seen or that female founders benefit from a lot. So we're also trying to change the game when it comes to, providing this kind of attention and say, there is amazing innovation happening. It's actually addressing real problems. So there should also be money behind it.
Wow. You do so much and you do so much for education. It's almost like you're evolving as these developments happen in AI, which is I think it's so great to be pragmatic as well. Yeah, it's incredible. I'm actually kind of taken aback by how much you guys do it. It's incredible, honestly. It is
Yeah, I mean, when I when I look back at the year and a half, it feels like, so much has happened. But
Yeah.
it's I think it's really important because AI is moving so quickly. And
Yeah.
so something that you were thinking of doing, 6 months ago might not be the same thing or the thing to do now. So I really think it's very important to be very agile and just to see, okay, what is happening? How do we need to move with the flow? How can we make sure that this is, working in a way that is actually beneficial? So what are the activities that we can
Exactly.
implement?
I was speaking to someone a couple of days ago, and again, someone today, and I was saying, uh, with my own company, I developed my own AI model, and the things that I was doing 3 months ago uh, that in my head were revolutionary, and now in loads of people's models, it's
Mhm.
like you have to constantly be on the ball, almost constantly looking to the future.
Mhm.
Uh, and powering on to keep going. I was speaking to someone and they said that there is a new generation of AI every 3 months or 4 months,
Mhm.
something like that. That's 4 a year, that's 3 or 4 a year.
Yeah.
It's insane. It kind of puts into perspective how much changes in such a
Yes.
short amount of time.
Mhm. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think,
And
new AI models drop every 3 to 4 months. You're totally right. So it's
yeah.
insane.
And 3 to 4 years ago, no one was talking about ChatGPT, and now it's on everyone's lips. So if we understand that the pace is moving so quickly, of course, organizations need to move quickly. But I'm curious, you've got these global women leaders who are part of Shape AI, your community, and I'm maybe curious about the spaces that they work in, or the advice you might give them about the spaces that they're in, the teams they're part of, the organizations that they're part of, and the fact that although AI seems objective, ultimately we know the algorithms can actually perpetuate bias at scale if we're not careful. So I guess, when you're trying to help them sort of bring AI into their organization or do it in a responsible way, if they're not entrepreneurs, or even if they are actually, how do they create the conversations about bias, about power, not just the technical delivery, but while also keeping that up? Because ultimately there is a conversation that says AI is biased because of who's created the AI in the first place, and therefore what can we do about it? So I'm wondering about the women and
Hmm.
how they can reshape that message and
Yeah.
how they can help remove the
Mm.
bias.
Yes. So, in particular, so first of all, we're delivering all our trainings with for women in leadership roles, but with women from our community. So the ones that are
Mm,
giving the trainings are actually women who know absolutely what they're talking about. They are
mm,
building AI themselves. They're doing advice. So they basically can say a lot about what this looks like and also what responsible applications look like. And all of them will tell you, yes, obviously, it's not about the technology, but there is so much more than this. And one of our trainers said something, and she always says this during our courses. She says, AI will never not be biased. It's just a question of what kind of a bias, right? If I were to program a model, it's going to be biased because I am a human, right? And I will put certain things in there and I will not put certain other things in there. So the question is to be very, very clear and to have a very good understanding and to actually be able to go back and to say, okay, what has the model been trained on? And then to maybe see, can I balance this up? Or what are my priorities? Because there might be a good reason for only using certain kinds of data, right? But for us, it's really about the awareness and not just to take things because they are being delivered to you, but to ask the questions and then to say, okay, we will take deliberate decisions on what to train our LLMs on, what the algorithms behind are, et cetera, et cetera. And yes, obviously you will have more discussions around bias when women are in the room because they are much more sensitive to these issues, and we're seeing a lot what doesn't work, what applications maybe don't work because they have been trained less on female data than on male data, etc. There are also very interesting companies out there now that try to focus exclusively on a female lens, right? Exclusively putting data from women. And that is just fabulous when it comes to education, health, etc., etc. But again, we need to be very clear. Again, that's biased again, but it's biased in a very different way, and it's biased in a very um, conscious way, right? If I may say that. And I think all of this understanding is really crucial. It's a choice, but you have to understand what's behind, what's underneath, in order to take these decisions and in order to rectify.
I completely agree. I think especially now that there's so many different AI models about, there is very little excuse for people to not have AI that is almost positively biased towards different demographics. I was at a conference a few months ago, and all throughout the conference, people kept saying, it was a conference for women. They kept saying, AI isn't built for us, so why would we use it? AI isn't X, Y, and Z. And now I keep telling people, just look around. I promise you, there is AI built for women.
Mhm.
There's AI built for everyone in mind, with different people in mind. I had quite a few, but they've all vanished from my head, so I'll link them in the caption. But um, as you said before, only 2% of all funding goes to women. Globally, but it's even less for female tech founders and female AI founders. So maybe those companies just haven't got the same airspace that OpenAI does, you know?
Yeah, I mean they don't, right? And they don't have the access. Also, they don't have the network necessarily. When you think about who takes investment decisions, very often again, investors are male and they ask questions that they would ask, their peers. So there's just so much that needs to change, and we need to see changes on a systemic level. We have to get more women into funding decisions, into funding panels, but we also have the women step up more, right? Talk more about what they do, but also give them the space, right? And as women, I always think we need to support one another. We have to support one another by giving access to our networks, right? And being very generous, I think. And I'm always, whenever I meet someone new, something immediately happens in my brain. I'm like, who is the person I could introduce this one to? And I think that is something that I really would hope we would be just doing we would be doing on a very systemic and systematic level to really cheer each other up and support one another. And this is precisely what we're trying to do with the awards, right? We don't have the money to give funding ourselves, but at least we can provide the platform, the visibility, the introductions, in order to change the playing field.
Exactly.
Couldn't
Exactly.
agree more. And I also want to just say that, when we're talking about women, women are not a monolith either, are they? There's such an intersection of identities of women. So even when we have a data set of women, if it's
Yes,
not a diverse group of women, we can still have some bias
precisely.
against particular women. And so this is not a straightforward challenge. It's a complex one, really, to
Hmm.
ensure that
Hmm.
we, as your colleague said, what kind of bias are we dealing with? Not that we're going to be able to get rid of it. And there was something
Hmm.
very recently that said Chat GPT has been caught making women younger. And so looking at CVs of women, they were making them younger and as a result, less experienced. And so they
Hmm.
weren't through in the recruitment process. And it's sort of,
Hmm. Hmm.
what is that about? Why is it making women younger? Why is it assuming that we have less experience and therefore are unqualified? And so there's so many nuances to, the
Hmm.
algorithm and how they run, that we have to
Yes.
consider. But
Yes.
I think
Hmm.
a starting point is thinking about women, and then we go beyond. Then we think about those intersections, which is really
Yes,
important.
exactly. Let's start somewhere, but really acknowledge the complexity, right? It's not something that's going to be solved easily. And maybe just going back to your example of ChatGPT, right? There are so many things that we are discovering that when women prompt the system to ask what kind of fee should I charge for, service XYZ, and then a man would do this, it would basically give very different replies. But then also as a user, I think you also have a choice and a responsibility to think what kind of tools do I trust and do I use? Right, there isn't only ChatGPT in this world, but it's very
Absolutely.
easy to use it because it was the first one out there. But there
Yes.
is so much has happened, right, in the
Mm.
meantime. So also go around and see, what kind of values are behind what kind of data, etc. And take or ask if you don't know. I'm not expecting everyone to have the answers, right? But to really say, okay, you have a choice now. You don't have to go with the very first one that's out there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree with
exactly.
that. Yeah, such a good.
Sorry. Sorry, Mum. You can
Oh,
go,
you
you
wanna
go.
say something?
Yeah, I was just saying that we had a great guest, Christian Ortiz, on our second series, and he created his own AI model called Justice AI that was aimed at every demographic in the world. And he was saying how much he has to go back and continue updating his data set when there's new knowledge, when something happens
Hmm.
in the community, when things change as life changes, as life evolves. And it's we as people who use AI have to have not only discernment of what we use AI for and the model that we use, but also the responsibility to ourselves to make sure that we are trusting a company that not only values our data, values our demographic, and cares enough to constantly be updating, constantly teaching itself, constantly learning. Um, you know, there's I always say that you can always be better. An AI model can always be
Hmm.
better. It can always be a bit less biased or biased in a different way.
Hmm.
It can always be evened out. It can always be trained on more. And I think that as more AI models come about and there is more choice and there are a lot of different models, especially human-centered models that are coming
Hmm.
up, like Claude, um, we have to know which ones to use. We have
Hmm.
to do the research. It's just the same way that you wouldn't go into the first shop you see and buy shoes. You want some shoes, you want good shoes. You're not gonna go into that first shoe shop. You might shop around a bit. It
Hmm.
has to be the same with AI.
Exactly. We have to get into this habit, right? Because I was invited to a conference with a lot of amazing female scientists, young scientists. We were talking about AI, and afterwards I moderated a workshop, and I asked them, what is it that you're using, the tools? And obviously they all went for the the standard option. And I said, why? And they said, well, because it's there. I said, this is, you are smart, educated women. I would hope that you would ask yourself a lot of questions. And they are doing this now moving forward, but it's an education. It's up to us to do this ourselves. It's, to discuss this with our children. That it's, just don't take the first shoe shop. Go and shop around a little.
Is there any large language model that you have a preference for?
Well, I mean, not getting paid, right? But
Yeah.
I'm using Claude, but I'm using also a Mistral, a French one, Le Chat, which I think is really good.
Okay.
Okay. I've used Claude a few times. My mum likes, you like Claude, don't you, Mum?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. Do you know what? I'm a little bit like with my LLMs, like my supermarkets. Like in the UK, I will go to, I'm not loyal to supermarkets. Sometimes I'll go to Tesco, sometimes Sainsbury's, sometimes I'll go to Aldi, Waitrose, Marks and Spencer's. You can ask me a given week. I'll go to the one I feel like going to that week. And I try and do the same. So I'm currently using Copilot, Claude,
Mm.
and Gemini. Um,
Mm.
and actually, I feel like they have different personalities.
That is
So,
absolutely true.
so
Yes.
I'll go for Claude for one thing, but I'll go to Gemini for another, and I'll keep that conversation going on Gemini for a particular type of conversation. Um,
Yeah.
but there, to your point, there was someone on LinkedIn, and I'm not going to remember now, but she created one that was a bit like her personality, and she was like, sign up for my LLM, but she was maybe a bit bolder than me. It was like she was giving some really bold, strong answers, and I was thinking, I don't think this is going to work for me. But it was really great to have it with her voice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah.
really enjoyed it. So
Yeah.
I completely agree that, shop around, be a bit like me with supermarkets. You don't have
Yes.
to one.
Yeah.
Yes,
for a reason.
exactly. And see what is the style, right, that you prefer, but also what's the purpose? What are you using it
Yes.
for? Do you maybe sometimes need, the replies to be a little more provocative in order to get you out
Yes.
of your comfort zone, or
Mhm.
does it need to be a little more scholarly and more scientific and a little more
Yes.
measured? So in all of this,
Yeah.
obviously plays a role,
Yeah. Because I
but
do use.
you need
Sorry, carry
exactly,
on.
but can't be exactly. Just know it and contextualize it and use it then in a very sort of clear right way.
Yes. Because I use Perplexity when I'm looking for,
Mm-hmm.
actually, I really want to go back and see where you got this
Mm-hmm.
information from. So yeah, I completely see your point there. So, just moving beyond this and thinking a little bit more about organizations. So my work, I do a lot of work with organizations, really helping people to lead through this AI world that we're in now, into this next generation. What we find is that people talk the talk, but they're not always able to walk the walk, really.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wonder how people can move beyond um, sort of AI compliance. This is what
Mm-hmm.
I have to do, to really embedding equity in the AI that they implement, or that they try to embed in their organizations. I just wondered if you had any thoughts on that.
Well, I think what happens oftentimes is that the AI application stalls somewhere in the organization, right? The leadership has given out the direction. We're going to use AI. We're going to use this tool. It's amazing for us. But then no one actually knows how to implement it. And there is distrust. People are just not entirely sure what to do with it. Someone might experiment, others might not do it. And then at the end of the day, it's the trainee who's the only one, the young one, the 20-year-old who is, developing or using AI for the organization. Women, as I said, there are a lot of issues when it comes to women in AI. Women do like to use AI, right? I think we have caught up when it comes to using it, but we are still more reluctant and critical. And I think that's actually something that is very healthy, but it's not
Yeah.
necessarily something that's encouraged. So I think organizations need to provide this space for questioning. Questions like, what is actually behind the system that we're using, right? How is the algorithm? What does the algorithm say? What is the data that's in there? And to really provide this space, because this will build trust within organizations, right? Women will ask, themselves and the organization. Before I use it, I need to understand if I'm doing this in a responsible way. Am I doing this in an ethical way? And these are all valid questions. It's not questions that should be, sort of shoved under the carpet. They should be discussed, at leadership level, staff level, etc., etc. I think to also allow these voices to be heard, and to discuss, I think that is something that is really, really, really important. In addition to this, there have been studies that when women use AI at work to produce something, one product, and when men do the same thing and produce the same result, men are being considered as super tech savvy and the women are being looked at cheating, right?
Mm.
There are so many things around women in tech, the workspace, that I think is so important for leaders in organizations to also be aware of, which is why women need to be part of these conversations. So within, the leadership team, all of this needs to be put on the table, or maybe not being addressed, but there needs to be someone who actually understands that and tries, to channel practices and conversations in a way that everyone feels like their thoughts are welcome. They're welcome to have this space to experiment, because this is ultimately what we all need to do with AI, right? It can also be a lot of fun. It should be a lot of fun to try out and see, well, how does it work for me? How does it not work for me? How can I do it in a different way? But to do this together and to really create this space for questions and for critique as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that part of the reason that there is such a big gap in usage between men and women, especially men and older women, as
Mm-hmm.
well,
Mm-hmm.
is because of this idea that using AI is cheating.
Mm-hmm.
Using AI is not okay. We heard that quite a lot, I think, in our first
Mm-hmm.
series, with people echoing that this is something that they'd heard, and that people thought that, again, this comes back to the idea that people thought AI was either going to be the silver bullet or it was going to be this miracle pill. And I think that as I said, as things are evening out now, I think that this gap will close, but it will only close if people actively choose to help it shut. If um if employers and CEOs actively encourage their staff and employees to use this and to learn how to use it and learn how to use it well.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I just like to say though that AI is actually is becoming part of everything. And I think there will be a point at which it's unavoidable. So
Mm-hmm.
there's one thing about leading through AI and strategically thinking about AI, which might not be where women have been placed in the past. And I think we have to actively be in that space. But I think the usage of AI is just going to be ubiquitous. I just think it's going to
Mm-hmm.
be everywhere. It almost, we go into Google now, it's there. You go into almost everything and it has some AI in it. So
Mm-hmm.
I think part of it will be unavoidable.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the level and the work that you're doing, Julia, is so important to make us, the creators, to the leaders in this space, so that we have a voice, so that when things are being designed, we
Mm-hmm.
are in mind, is absolutely key. And I just wanted to share a very quick story that I read on LinkedIn this week, which is slightly, it maybe for me, it was partly concerning and really interesting at the same time, which was someone who'd been using ChatGPT for 3 years. And they asked it to look at everything, that every conversation they'd had in the last 3 years and create themselves. Like, how do I think? What do I ask? Create me. And as a result of creating me, download it so that my colleagues can understand who I would be. What if they ask me a question, this is how I would answer it. This is my stance on this. This is what I think. And I thought, wow, you're trying to download your brain so that you can relax because your brain is going without you. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. As a business owner myself, how wonderful to trust the answers that it might give. I'm not sure they would be trustworthy. I'm not sure the algorithm would work, but also how terrifying that that's you're downloading you and you're
Mm-hmm.
giving it to other people. And
Yes.
I think some of that is some of the worries that perhaps, why people are reticent. It's like, yeah, there's a great opportunity, but there's also, there's a lot of responsibility
Uh-huh.
in that perhaps is not being considered.
Uh-huh.
So, my last question to you as a result of that, reading that is, what are you hopeful for? I think there's so much we can be hopeful for. There are also concerns, but
Uh-huh.
what are you hopeful for in the next 5 years? What genuine change do you think can happen as a result of AI?
Well, first of all, I really hope that we will be able to show more and more the positive uses of AI, right? And that we say, yes, it can do so many great things if we're doing it well, and we get a better understanding what doing it well actually means. Again, by telling stories. I'm a huge fan of stories, because this is what brings it home to us. I would also love for us to, we talk about responsible AI as if it's something separate. I really hope that in the next 5 years we'll actually arrive at an understanding where AI is responsible, right? And we need more and more actors. We have more and more actors who are doing this. And I think Europe plays a very important role in sort of leading this conversation. I also would like to say, responsibility and innovation, they're not mutually exclusive. I would also hope for us to reach, sort of that understanding that it's actually something that can support innovation in a very meaningful way. Yes, so I just want to have more discussions. I also think AI is happening. We need to be a very active part of this conversation. But we have, and that's what I like to underline, we have agency here. It's not something that happens to us. It's something that we want to shape and have to shape. And so, for the next 5 years, this is what I want to see. I want to see many, many more people, apart from the big companies, actually shaping AI and showing what is possible. If we're doing this in a human-centered way, in a values-driven way, in a responsible way, and really actually focusing on how to make sure that it serves people and the planet.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So now we're going to go on to our quick fire round questions.
Okay.
Yeah, I love these because I create them myself, but I also think that it's just like a little fun way to
Okay.
the end the episode. So, what is one book or paper you'd recommend to someone just starting in AI and equity?
Okay. I'm prepared for this one. So here, that's Codependent, Madame Julia. Read it. It really brings it home to people, I think, and what it
Amazing.
means.
Thank you. If you could wave a magic wand and fix one thing in the AI ecosystem overnight, what would it be?
More money for female AI founders and more money for AI for impact.
Amazing. And trainers or formal shoes for a day of site visits and board meetings?
Oh my goodness. Flat shoes for the side meetings and high heels for board meetings.
Nice. Nice. Well, that is all of my quick fire round questions. Thank you so much for this incredible episode. It's honestly been so insightful.
Thank you. It was a real pleasure to have, to be speaking with the two of you. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks so much. And just a quickie at the end, we realized that we have EWOB in common, European Women
Oh,
on Boards. Yeah,
Mm,
so yeah, I've delivered sessions for them. Leah did a recent talk for them as well, and
yeah.
nice.
so really fantastic to have that in common also. So thank you.
Yes.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much. Hello, hello, hello. I hope you all enjoyed our wonderful episode with Julia Stamm. We are here to give you our afterthoughts. So, what we liked, what we agreed with, what will we be taking forward? I think is the question on everyone's lips. And by everyone, I mean me. So,
And me, not just you.
exactly. So, I will kick it off with what I liked. I, as a female founder, as a female AI founder, and some of the social sciences background as well, loved discussing how social sciences and the humanities can interact with AI. I do think that at the basis of artificial intelligence and tech is humanities and social sciences. How do we know what we need to work on as a society if we don't have the words and the language to articulate where we think the shortcomings are, where we think the fallings and the failings are? Yeah,
Yeah. I
I think
agree with you. Go on,
I think
Karen.
that's
I didn't
like
realize you were still talking, you paused.
I know I did. I was thinking as well. I think that this is something that's been echoed throughout the seasons as well, that a humanities base, a social sciences base can be a really, really good kickstart for a tech company. Maybe I'm biased. I think I am a bit biased, but I do think it gives you a better perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Well, it sounds like it's working for you and it worked for Julia. So there's a couple of test cases there. For me, I like the idea of women supporting women, building a community of women in this AI space where women feel safe and that can be open, but where they can also support others. The idea that the course that she runs, for female leaders is run by women running start AI startups or AI businesses. I like that sort of virtuous circle that continues as a result of the work that they do. And I think it's very empowering for women to know that there are spaces where they can feel safe to learn about AI or expand and extend their businesses. And the fact that she was unapologetic about money being needed. We need funding, we need support, we need people to put their money where their mouth is. None of this happens on goodwill. And I think too often women don't ask for the money. And so I'm really pleased that she does and she empowers other women to do so.
That was my thing that I agreed with. I think that even just in the case study that the case that she gave us where ChatGPT was telling men and women to charge different things, I think that money is such a taboo within female communities, within female led and ran communities. Um, it's almost like a topic that we shouldn't talk about. Even when I am thinking about pricing my own model, I've caught myself undervaluing it or saying that the value is less than it is, underselling not only myself and my hard work, but this model that is potentially life saving. When men wouldn't do that.
Yeah, yeah. I completely agree. I think we've been socialized perhaps to expect less. And also when we're doing good, like your AI tool is going to do good for society. And everything that Julia was talking about was about responsible AI and social justice at the same time. And the challenge with that is that sometimes when you're doing good, people think that you should be doing good for free, but you still have to live. And actually, there's a value to your expertise. There's a value to what you bring that we have to value ourselves so we can demonstrate its value to other people. So, yeah, completely agree. The money bit and the valuing is really key, but I think really challenging when you're doing good. It's different if you're just a business to make money. There's lots of businesses, they're just selling widgets, they're not changing the world, but when you're
Exactly.
trying to change the world, I think it feels harder sometimes to put a monetary value next to that.
It really does. It really, really does. And finally, what I will be taking forward is discernment with my AI models. I do I do really love ChatGPT, especially as I've got it trained. But the more I hear about it, the more I question it, the more I feel like I have to shop around with AI models. And I'm sure quite a lot of people feel like that as well.
Yeah, I would definitely look up Mistral that she mentioned because I haven't heard of
Yeah.
it. And I like the thought of actually, let me just find out what's the big um large language model in different countries and let me try that
Yeah.
one. Yeah, I'm not sure the UK or the US one. Actually, most of the ones we're engaging in are US founded, aren't they?
Yeah,
So
they are.
I love that idea as well. And there's I think that maybe not telling one large language model too much about yourself is a good thing. Yes, it holds your memory, but then it holds your life. So actually, let's spread
Yeah.
the rest around a little bit. And also, what if it disappears? What if I've been talking to, a large language model every day for 3 years and then they just pull it? What happens then? I'll be lost.
Exactly. Where does
So,
that knowledge go? Who's
yeah,
it going to?
yeah,
What are they
there's that.
using it for?
Yeah, those questions are really important, but also just I will be lost. I don't wanna download in my
Yeah.
brain and then my brain goes.
No, that's so
I'll
true.
be I'll be
We
distraught.
need to make sure that we are still using our brains,
We
that we
do, we
have
do.
that all of the same knowledge. Well, maybe not all the same
Not
knowledge,
all of
but
it. Of course, we wouldn't ask these,
similar
others.
knowledge and, use that brain that we've got. I was speaking to one of my friends who's a teacher, and she
Mhm.
was saying that kids use AI for everything, that they're asking questions. People my age are asking questions when we know the answers, using it to make decisions for us when really we should just be doing that ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, I often fall out of love with it though, because you ask it a question,
Yeah.
you just think, "That's not the answer. That's not the answer I'm
Yeah,
looking for." And then I just
exactly,
think, "Oh,
exactly.
let me just use my brain." 'Cause the time I spend going back and forward with you, a large language model, I could have come up with my answer myself. So,
Exactly.
other times it's really useful. I think it's just knowing when, how, what, it's asking yourself those questions. And of
Yeah,
course, the word discernment, yeah. Uh, but Julia was amazing. I could have spoken to her for at least 2 more hours, and I hope to
yeah,
speak to her again. And yeah, her award ceremony, I would like us to be there. So let's make it happen.
exactly. Right. See you guys next week.
Yeah, see you soon. Take care. And don't forget to, if you're on YouTube, subscribe, follow, share, spread the word.
Thanks for listening to AI for Equity. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Stay curious, stay bold, and keep using AI to build a fairer future.